Welcome to today's Foster & Freeman webinar on fibres and hairs. My name is Yvonne Turner and I work in application support at Foster & Freeman. Please be aware we are muting all guests, but you are able to ask questions throughout the webinar using the chat box. At the end of the webinar, we will have our live question and answer session, where as many of your questions will be answered as possible in the time allowed. Thank you. Today's webinar is based on forensic hair and fibre detection analysis. Stray hairs and minute broken fragments of fibres can provide forensic examiners with vital clues during a criminal investigation, potentially connecting a suspect or victim with a crime scene. In this webinar, we take a look at the latest technologies for detecting and analysing these items of high evidential value using our very own Foster & Freeman products. I've always had a passion for fibres, and it was the reason for my association with Foster & Freeman, working on a prototype to reduce the tedium of fibre searching. Another paper was published at this time. The examination of fibres and hairs can be a long and painstaking exercise, demanding attention to detail. It's not complicated, but it does require commitment, and it's often considered tedious. But with that comes rewards. Advances in the sensitivity of DNA techniques has meant there are far fewer occasions where DNA evidence is not used to demonstrate contact. Contact between victim and suspect, victim or suspect and the scene, vehicle or weapon. However, a considerable number of fibres of unusual composition and of different colours and types can still provide strong evidence to either corroborate DNA evidence or when no DNA evidence can be found. Fibres and hairs in most environmental conditions are resistant to biological, physical and chemical degradation and can persist for long periods of time. And because fibres are involved in most everyday activities, it stands to reason they are also involved in most crime scenes. Around the world, forensic science laboratories are still using fibres and hairs evidence to bring suspects to trial. To highlight the importance of finding fibres and hairs at a crime scene, we're going to take a look at a well-known case, the Soham case, which had a breakthrough of evidence based on fibres and hairs.
Good evening. Police in Cambridgeshire have staged a reconstruction of the last known movements of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. The 10-year-old girls went missing 6 days ago in their hometown of Soham. Detectives now say there is no evidence that Holly and Jessica went to meet someone they contacted in an internet chat room. Clarence Mitchell reports from Soham.
Taking their walk towards the unknown, these are the last identified steps of Holly and Jessica. Recreated by two young girls from a drama company in Cambridge, they were wearing identical clothing and jewellery to the missing 10-year-olds. Their Manchester United shirts the same, along with their sports trousers. Their hair, too, styled as closely to Holly and Jessica's as possible. The aim to jog people's memories of last Sunday.
This case didn't benefit from the Foster & Freeman technology that's currently available to crime scene investigators and forensic scientists. We were very lucky to have contacted an ex-colleague of mine, a senior forensic scientist at the Forensic Science Service, Peter Lamb, who played a vital role in the investigation of this case. He will now say a few words about his experiences.
Modern techniques in forensic science rely heavily on rapid, reliable DNA testing, and we've become accustomed to powerful statistical evidence of match probabilities. However, traditional forensic science techniques still have a place in complex investigations, and I want to briefly mention one example where fibre and hair evidence were crucial to the case, because no probative DNA was ever found. In August 2002, two 10-year-old girls disappeared from the family barbecue in Soham, Cambridgeshire. A photograph taken just before showed the girls dressed in identical Manchester United tops. CCTV showed them walking through Soham towards the school, but they were never seen alive again. Eventually, the inquiry focused on the school caretaker, Ian Huntley. His home, his car, and the school were searched, and tapings were taken for potential hair and fibre work. During later searches of the school workshop, a bin containing the burned remains of the two girls' clothing was found. All of these items were sent to the Forensic Science Laboratory at Huntingdon for examination. The aim was to determine whether there was any evidence to associate Ian Huntley or someone else with the girls' clothing. A detailed strategy was developed and agreed with the police. During our investigations, low power, high power, blue and ultraviolet light microscopy was used to find fibres of interest, then birefringent microscopy followed by microspectrophotometry and dye analysis identified target fibres. In addition, hairs of interest were recovered from tapings and other items for detailed microscopic examination and comparisons. Although these examinations might be time-consuming and hence in the regime expensive, compelling evidence was produced showing both one-way and two-way transfers of fibres between the girls, Ian Huntley, his car and his home. As well as fibres, hairs from Ian Huntley were found on the girls' clothing from the bin at the school. The findings were presented to the courts in November 2003 using a novel presentation conveying the multitude of complex fibre exchanges. In December 2003, the jury found Ian Huntley guilty and he was sentenced to life imprisonment. The use of crime lights at both scene and in the laboratory greatly aided our investigations. There is no doubt that advancements in light technology and microscopy and the development of new products will have reduced the time taken to perform such examinations in modern forensic science investigations. Without hair and fibre evidence, Ian Huntley may never have been brought to justice.
Thank you, Peter, for that fascinating insight. So, textile fibres and hairs at the crime scene. The volume crime scene is very different from the major crime scene. Textile products at the volume crime scene might present themselves as whole items left by an offender, such as a glove discarded at the scene, or as a visible group of fibres left behind, like in a clump of fibres caught on the glass window frame. Because of the requirement to be selective with potential evidence from the volume crime scene, a crime scene investigator will normally restrict the seizure of such fibres to those most likely to relate to the offender's activity. Examples would include fibres trapped in fittings around the point of entry or exit, or in a broken glass related to offender entry or exit. Consequently, the balance of seizure of textile products differs distinctly when compared with major crime, in which the quantities of whole items of clothing associated with victims and offenders are likely to be much greater and are much more likely to be submitted for further forensic examination. The Crime Light Auto is one of the latest additions to our Crime Light range and can be introduced as the most complete and compact forensic digital camera solution in existence. The Crime Light Auto is a compact handheld device combining the latest forensic imaging technology with high intensity multispectral illumination. The examiner can perform real-time visible, fluorescent and infrared examinations to quickly reveal the presence of evidence, including hair and suspect fibres. With up to 55 illumination wavebands and built-in filters, the Crime Light Auto has the full capability to document evidence at the crime scene using a high UV visible infrared camera to capture images and live video beyond the visible spectrum. The importance of the auto is in the efficiency of the examination, the speed of which the fibres and hairs can be found,